The family agrees, and they spend some time resting before gathering for dinner. After the meal, Aisha calls out to Noah and Moon, holding a book in her hands. With a playful grin, she asks if they want to see photos of their mother when she was a child. Both girls immediately perk up with curiosity, their attention drawn to the book. Moon excitedly raises her hand and cheerfully says she wants to see it. Rosweiss, seeing what her sister is up to, is visibly caught off guard, surprised and a bit flustered by what Aisha is about to reveal. Rosweiss quickly rushes toward Aisha, attempting to snatch the album, exclaiming that she doesn't want those photos out in the open and demanding that Aisha give it to her. Aisha, holding the album high to keep it out of reach, teases Rosweiss, noting that she seems to be shy about it. As the struggle continues, Aisha locks eyes with Leon. He senses the playful challenge in her gaze and looks back at her, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. Just as Rosweiss is about to grab the album, Aisha makes a sudden move. She decisively tosses it toward Leon. With quick reflexes, Leon catches it with ease. Rosweiss, flustered and blushing, turns to Leon, telling him to wait. With a mischievous grin, Leon opens the album, remarking that there's nothing more humiliating than looking through someone's childhood photos, anticipating the reveal of Rosweiss's past. As Leon opens the album, a radiant glow emanates from it, leaving him surprised and questioning what is happening. As Leon opens the album, he comments in surprise about discovering a different side of Rosweiss. His words catch Rosweiss off guard, and she looks at him with concern. Behind him, Moon and Noah, full of curiosity, express their eagerness to see the contents as well. Leon holds up a photo of Rosweiss from her teenage years, remarking on how energetic she looked as a student. Aisha, observing the photo, explains that it was taken during a moment when Rosweiss was giving a speech as an outstanding student representative. Leon then playfully questions how she ended up becoming so cold in the present. In response, Rosweiss steps on his foot in irritation. She takes the photo from his hand and, with a teasing tone, warns him not to get too full of himself, or he might become her next target. At that, Leon gives in, recognizing her playful threat. Noah and Moon continue flipping through the album, their curiosity growing. Standing behind them, Aisha mentions that there are many photos of their mother from her childhood near the beginning, inviting them to take a look. As they turn the page, Aisha recalls how, as a child, Rosweiss was pale and soft, and touching her felt incredibly comforting. Looking at one of the photos, Noah observes how small her mother was back then. Moon excitedly adds that she wants to touch her too. As they flip to another page, Moon points out another photo, exclaiming that their mother looks so beautiful in it. Eager to see what has caught their attention, Leon leans in closer beside Moon asking him to show it too. Aisha then explains that the photo they're looking at was taken on the day Rosweiss inherited the title of Silver Dragon Queen. Leon, impressed, turns to Rosweiss and compliments her, saying she looks truly cool. In response, Rosweiss glances at Leon with a blushing face, her cheeks turning red as she pouts in a mix of embarrassment and flustered frustration. As they continue looking through the photos, Noah notes that they've reached the last page. Moon, not satisfied, expresses her disappointment and says she wants to see more pictures of her mother. Rosweiss gently takes the album from their hands and says that since they've finished viewing it, they can now keep it. Just then, Aisha takes out a crystal ball and, with a playful smile, announces that it's not over yet. She asks if they know what it is. Rosweiss, immediately recognizing it, calls out to her sister in embarrassment. Before anyone else can respond, Leon enthusiastically raises his hand and identifies the object as a recording stone. Aisha, chuckling, turns to Noah and Moon and asks if they'd like to see video footage of their mother. Hearing that, both girls blush with excitement and eagerly respond that they do. Rosweiss, holding Aisha's hand with a pitiful expression, pleads not to reveal the contents of the recording stone, appealing to their bond as biological sisters. Leon joins in, also pleading with Aisha, this time from the position of being her brother-in-law, asking her to please show them what's inside. Internally, Leon can hardly contain his amusement, guessing that Rosweiss's resistance must mean there are some truly embarrassing clips stored within. Together, both Rosweiss and Leon turn to Aisha, addressing her with heartfelt calls of sister. Aisha, shaking her head with a playful glint in her eyes, gives a teasing wink and proposes a compromise. Since this is Leon's first time visiting their home, she suggests they listen to him this time and listen to Rosweiss the next. Leon, thrilled, looks over at Rosweiss with excitement as he wins over Aisha. Meanwhile, Rosweiss grits her teeth in frustration, silently vowing that she will never bring him here again. Aisha carefully places the crystal ball in a spot where everyone can see it clearly and activates it. As the recording begins to play, she remarks that this is a very precious video. Rossweiss, watching the scene unfold, instantly recognizes the location in the footage and is visibly shocked. In a panic, she quickly moves to cover Leon's eyes, insisting that he's not allowed to look. Leon, curious and trying to peek, reacts in confusion, wondering what's happening. The video reveals a much younger Rossweiss during her teenage years by the lakeside. In the recording, Aisha can be heard asking her what criteria she would have for choosing a future partner. The younger Rossweiss, already embarrassed by the recording, is shown trying to stop her sister from filming, saying it makes her feel uncomfortable. But Aisha gently encourages her to open up, telling her not to be shy and to share her thoughts. Rossweiss, appearing thoughtful in the recording, takes a moment before answering. She begins listing her criteria for a future partner: someone whose grades are better than hers, preferably someone who has won many first-place honors. She adds that the person should be responsible and must not dislike children. Watching the video, Moon excitedly points out that the person their mother is describing sounds just like their father. At her words, Noah remains quiet, casting a side glance at Moon without saying anything. The video continues. Rossweiss explains further that her ideal partner should be strong, yet must never bully the weak. They should have a firm code of conduct and remain unaffected by prejudice, be it from their own kind or from external influences. Listening to this, Leon confidently affirms that the description fits him, particularly the part about being strong but not bullying others. In response, Rossweiss, flustered, grabs his face and turns it away, clearly embarrassed by his self-praise. She says that he has no shame. Aisha, watching them, smiles knowingly at their interaction. The recording goes on, with Rossweiss noting how challenging these qualities are to find, especially the last one. She reflects that many people lose their way once they attain power and authority. In the recording, young Rossweiss gazes up at the sky and softly reflects that if such a person doesn't exist, she wouldn't want to force herself into marriage. Then, turning toward the camera with a bright and cheerful smile, she confidently declares that if she ever marries in the future, it would only be to someone who meets those ideals. Watching this moment, Leon is momentarily stunned. Her radiant smile and sincere words leave him blushing deeply. He quietly admits that he fits the image she once painted of her perfect partner. Embarrassed, Rossweiss tries to brush it off, explaining that it was just something she said when she was young. But Leon, unable to resist teasing, bumps her shoulder playfully and responds with a cheeky grin, insisting that he understands, no need to be so flustered. Aisha, intrigued, looks at Leon and Rossweiss and curiously asks who made the first move in their relationship. In perfect sync, both of them immediately point at each other, each claiming the other was the one who pursued first. Rossweiss, not amused by Leon's response, casts a dark look at him and demands he repeat himself. Her dominating presence causes Leon to step back slightly, falling into an awkward silence. With an awkward smile, he eventually admits that Rossweiss was the one who pursued him initially, but at the time, he failed to recognize her worth and ignored her. It was only later that he realized his mistake and began pursuing her in return. Rossweiss, folding her arms and looking away with pride, confirms his words. Aisha, watching their interaction with a knowing smile, comments that their relationship really is strong. Both Rossweiss and Leon, still slightly flustered, quickly look away and they both denies it. Aisha, with a playful smile, shifts the conversation and teasingly brings up the love letters Rossweiss received during her youth, mentioning there were quite a few. This instantly sparks excitement in Leon, Noah, and Moon, their eyes lighting up with curiosity and eagerness to see them. Rossweiss, overwhelmed with embarrassment, questions why her sister would even keep such things. As Aisha begins to pull out the old letters, Rossweiss, flustered, loudly insists on burning them before anyone can read further. Later, as Rossweiss and Leon head back to their room, Leon whispers that they have no choice but to stay together in one room, implying he's not entirely comfortable with the idea either. But as they step inside, they are both stunned into silence. The room is lavishly prepared, rose petals fill the bathtub, and the bed is elegantly decorated with roses, exuding a romantic atmosphere. Both of them stand frozen, speechless and baffled, wondering just what kind of situation they've walked into. As Aisha enters the room, Rossweiss, her face flushed with confusion, asks what's going on with the room. On the other side, Leon, clearly overwhelmed, holds his head in disbelief. With a playful smile and a teasing wink, Aisha responds that she's specially prepared a guest room for them to stay in for the next 2 days. Rossweiss, still blushing, folds her arms and hesitantly asks if there are any other rooms available. Aisha leans in closer, her voice dripping with mischief as she suggests Rossweiss might be feeling shy. Leon, silently observing the situation, suddenly becomes acutely aware of Aisha's intentions. He thinks to himself that he had been too careless in underestimating her. He realizes now that Aisha seems to have orchestrated this entire setup, likely with the aim of keeping them in close quarters. Leon thinks that she wanted to lock up the two endangered species, wait for them to go into heat, reproduce, and complete the task of revitalizing the race. As Leon tries to sneak away, he's already mentally preparing his escape, hoping to get out of the situation. However, just as he's about to make his move, Aisha, with a dark expression, places her hand on his shoulder and asks in a sly tone where he thinks he's going, addressing him as brother-in-law. Taken aback and caught off guard, Leon freezes, realizing he's been caught. With a nervous, awkward laugh, he tries to come up with an excuse, claiming his daughters must be missing him and he intends to check on them. Aisha, however, is one step ahead, reassuring him that she's already made arrangements for the kids. She tells him that she's prepared another room for them, where they're likely having a great time. As Aisha heads out of the room, she gives one last playful wink, closing the door behind her. Before leaving, she casually comments that Leon and Rosswife should just stay and have a good rest, leaving them both trapped in the situation she's set up. As Aisha leaves the room, both Leon and Rosswife let out a sigh of relief, momentarily freed from her mischievous presence. Rosswife walks over to the closet, opens the doors, and comments that it seems they have no choice but to spend the night in this room. Leon, still processing the situation, remarks on how he hadn't expected her sister to be so devious. In response, Rosswife, with a knowing tone, says that this is just how her sister is, he'll understand more as he spends time with her. When she looks inside the closet, Rosswife is stunned to find out so many different types of sexy outfits and cosplay costumes. Alarmed, and afraid Leon might catch a glimpse, she quickly slams the closet doors shut. The abrupt sound draws Leon's attention, and he looks at her with a puzzled expression, unsure why she reacted so strongly. Blushing deeply, Rosswife glances at him and, trying to maintain composure, informs him that the room only contains a bed and a bathtub, then firmly suggests that he should sleep in the bathtub. Leon at that time silently observed the bathtub. Leon, surprised and a bit angry at Rosswife's idea, turns to her with a frustrated look and asks why he has to be the one to sleep in the bathtub. Rosswife, avoiding eye contact, offers no explanation. Leon points out that upon checking, he discovered the bathtub's drain had been deliberately blocked, indicating that her sister had no intention of letting either of them sleep there. The tub had even been filled with warm water to further discourage the idea. Determined to make the best of the situation, Leon climbs onto the bed. As he touches it, he notices something unusual and remarks that the texture feels different from a regular bed. It dawns on him that it might actually be a water bed. Filled with curiosity, he starts bouncing on it playfully, enjoying its elasticity. Meanwhile, Rosswife watches Leon's antics with a blank, slightly exasperated expression, saying nothing as he continues to jumping on the bed. Leon looked at Rosswife, refusing to let her enjoy such a comfortable bed alone. Rosswife, turning her face away and blushing, suggested they sleep together. Leon, covering himself with both hands, glanced at her, confused by her sudden change of mind, wondering if she had some bad intentions. Rosswife, now visibly angry, clenched her fists and demanded to know if he was going to sleep or not. With a dark, domineering expression, she suggested they play with all the toys in the closet that night. Leon, taken aback by her aggressive tone, quickly declined. Rosswife, then closing the curtain, mentions she would take a bath first and warns him not to peek. Leon, now blushing, slowly glances at her and, trying to act innocent, asks why would he peek at her. Rosswife, clearly not trusting Leon's words, kicks him out of the room with a sharp tone, saying she doesn't believe him and tells him to come back later. Leon, walking down the hallway, mutters to himself that it's not like he hasn't seen it before anyway, he's just tired of it. As he walks, something catches his attention. He stops and looks ahead. It's Aisha, standing alone under the night sky, sipping wine quietly. Her eyes gaze upward, lost in thought. Noticing him, Aisha speaks up and asks why he's outside and where little Ross is. Leon casually replies that Rosswife is taking a shower, so he came out for some fresh air. Aisha lifts the wine bottle slightly and offers with a smile, asking if he'd like to drink with her. Without hesitation, Leon agrees. Aisha pours the wine into 2 glasses, mentioning that it's the kind of wine little Ross usually likes to drink. As she hands one glass to Leon, he accepts it with a nod and a quiet, "Thank you." The two stand together, the mood calm under the starlit sky. Aisha, her gaze fixed on the night sky, softly recalls that she and little Ross used to drinking and talking together in the same spot. There's a warmth in her voice, tinted with nostalgia. Leon, observing her expression, comments that they must share a deep bond. Aisha nods gently, eyes still on the stars, and begins to share more, how she's watched Rosweiss grow from birth, having spent the past 50 years by her side. Their time together changed when Rosweiss ascended as the Silver Dragon Queen and left their homeland. From then on, they maintained contact through letters, writing to reassure one another of their safety. With a more solemn tone, Aisha continues, revealing that just over a year ago, Rosweiss suddenly wrote to say she had married a quiet and low-profile Dragon King, and was pregnant with his child. Although she is married, she doesn't look very happy. There was a quiet melancholy in her words, an emotional weight that lingered between the lines. Aisha's voice softens as she brings up something Leon hadn't known, something Rosweiss had never told him herself. She reveals that in one of her letters, Rosweiss mentioned how Leon, during that time, was in poor health. He would sleep for unusually long periods and was unable to stay by her side. Though a maid was there to assist, Rosweiss had to endure most of it on her own. Aisha, pointing at Leon, explains as he knows carrying twins is significantly more challenging than bearing a single child, both during the pregnancy and at the time of delivery. Hearing her words, Leon's expression shifts with guilt and sorrow. Thoughts weigh heavily on his mind, how she had been forced to carry the children of her once mortal enemy. Rosweiss went through the burdens of pregnancy alone. The only comfort she had during those long, isolated days was exchanging letters with her sister to ease her heart. Leon silently reflects, during that time, Rosweiss must have lived a life filled with pain, loneliness, and quiet endurance. Aisha laughed as she playfully hit Leon's back, recalling how, at that time, she had thought she married an irresponsible, lazy, and useless male dragon. Leon clenched his teeth as her strike caught him off guard. He turned to her, laughing awkwardly, and asked if he truly seemed like that kind of dragon. Aisha gazed at the sky with a light smile and replied that after spending a short time with him tonight, he certainly didn't seem like trash. There had to be a reason for that. As she looked back at Leon, she added that this only made her more certain that little Ross liked him. Leon, taken aback by her words, stared at Aisha in shock, his mind racing as he thought of Rosweiss's face. He can't believe the thought that she liked him. His heart racing at the thought of she like him. As the story unfolds, Rosweiss and Leon continue to grow closer with each passing chapter. They're not only discovering what lies within their hearts but also gaining a deeper understanding of one another. With each shared moment, their bond strengthens, evolving into something truly powerful. However, Leon's true identity remains a lingering concern. Once a feared dragon slayer, now seen as a traitor to the human kingdom after being betrayed and stabbed in the back. Many secrets are yet to surface, and the truth still waits to be revealed. To follow their journey and uncover the mysteries ahead, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share the story with others.